Served in the U.S. Army from 1942 to 1945. This interview is taking place in Vorheesville, New York on March 24, 2003 at 11 a.m. The interview is being conducted by June Hunter and Kenneth Hunter. What is your full name and when and where were you born?
William E. Schultz. I was born on the Cohoes Road, and I guess it's the town of Colony. That's the best description I can give you. That was 86 years ago.
Uh-huh. And what did you do before you entered the service?
Worked for Duffy Mott here in Vorheesville.
What did you do in that job?
Worked in the bottling plant. I ran a bottling machine.
And how did you hear about Pearl Harbor, and what were your feelings?
Oh, I was shocked. We were going up. Vera and I, about every Sunday, we used to go up to Oster House and have some beer and French fries. It was an occasion where a lot of the local people went up there, and Vera and I were on. I can remember had the car radio on. We were going up to Oster House, and then that's when we heard it. Heard about it.
And tell us who Vera is.
Huh?
Tell us who Vera is.
Well, Vera Lasher was her maiden name, and that's my wife now.
And how many years have you been married?
61.
Right. Now, did you volunteer or were you drafted?
Drafted.
You were drafted. And where were you inducted into the service?
Fort Totten, yeah.
And do you have any specific memories about that experience? What you did? Did you take a train, or how did you get there, and what did you do?
Well, I was worried. I had a bad knee, a real bad knee, all the way along, you know. And I said, my God, you get over there, and I couldn't run. I wouldn't be able to run. So, and that was my only concern with that. And then when my classification came back, it was Class B. So that deferred me for a little while. And then finally they took me in, and I can't remember the date I went in now.
Really doesn't matter, but now you mentioned that you had to have surgery on your knee. Did they do that in the service?
Oh, no.
You had it after.
They put me in the hospital a few times, but for the bad knee, because it would go out and I'd get water in the knee and it'd be sore than heck. And no, they didn't do anything like that. They put me in the hospital, and I remember this one occasion that this was when I was in Fort Jackson. This one occasion when they put me in the hospital, and it always teed me off because it'd come Saturday or something like that. That'd be for the patients. That'd be work day. Christ, they'd have you washing walls and doing stuff like that. And finally, one time I said, I'm not going to do it. If I can do this, I can go back to my battery. And so then they sent me to a psychiatrist, I guess, as I remember that, because they asked me why I got married, you know, if I got married to beat the draft or something like that. But no, it was a good experience. That psychiatrist was good. It wasn't a case of laying on a couch or anything. We sat, you know, I sat up and he sat up, and but I didn't. They got me out of the. They sent me after that. When I refused to do the work at the hospital, they sent me back to the battery, and or they called my company battery commander, and he came over, and they got me out of the hospital. But I never went back in again.
Mm-hmm. And then what unit were you assigned to?
Now, after we got to Pensacola, after they broke up the field artillery, Coast Guard artillery, they sent us to a brigade. They made I got to back up. They took all the Seacoast artillery people, and they I guess they took them and sent them, because they were all 1A people, they sent them overseas or wherever they sent them. And then they took us, and they took us to Fort Jackson, all in our outfit. I can't speak for all the Seacoast artillery people, but they took all the people, they cleaned Fort Barrancas right out, and they sent us up to, they formed a brigade at Fort Jackson, North Carolina, South Carolina. And then they broke us all up into units, and that's when I became part of the 762nd Field Artillery Battalion. Now that was a howitzer outfit.
And now, what locations were you in, and what did you do in the different locations you served in? You can clear that up.
Post artillery outfit. And then after a while, they, as I say, then they sent us to Fort Jackson in a brigade. And then, you know, they formed a brigade, and they had a regular general that was in charge of it, and they come up and they made all these outfits. And I got assigned to a field artillery outfit, 762nd Field Artillery, Battery A. And I was I didn't work on the guns. I was chief of detail there because I was a staff sergeant, and I got this made the staff sergeant down in Pensacola, and then when I got into field artillery, they made me chief of detail, and that was all in charge of communications, surveys, and stuff like that, and was all. I can't remember everything we had to do, but but you was always working with guns because it was.
What was a typical day like in your training down there and getting this experience?
In where?
When you were down with the field artillery unit, what was a typical day like?
Like what time?
Oh,
did you
that
get
was
up?
all. That was sort of like basic training because all you did, you know, was regular field problems. And see, when I was in Seacoast Artillery, or Seacoast, I slept in my bed all the time. Never had a field problem at all. You know, you just but then when we got up there, it was just regular training, bivouacking, and gun firing, and you know, you'd go maybe a couple times a week. You'd go out on a range and fire the howitzers, because they were all new to us, and you know, there was a lot to learn in firing those howitzers.
Now, from Pensacola, did you go to Europe then from there, or did
Went to Fort Jackson.
You went to Fort Jackson.
Fort Jackson. Then we were assigned to our outfit, and then we were shipped right up to New York and overseas. But we were at Fort Jackson for, it had to be 3-4 months, you know, in training on the howitzers.
What kind of transportation did you go on to get overseas from New York? Was it?
It was a convoy.
What kind of a ship was it? A regular military cargo ship, or was it a converted
It was a
civilian
converted
ship?
SS Lejeune. I can remember that one. It was a converted, I guess it was a French liner or something. And we had 5,000 people in our ship, and it was a big. It was a large convoy, and I can remember a couple of times there where they, you know, you could see them throwing depth bombs out. You know, I can't remember now what type of ship that were. I don't think we had destroyer escort. We had a smaller escort, but it was a large.
Like a converted passenger liner?
Oh yes, that's what it was. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
did you have any nice artwork on the walls and
Oh
staterooms
no!
to sleep in?
Oh God, yeah. We were so cramped in there. You know, you had about that much space in between the bunks that come out of the wall. Like, oh no, there was no luxury liner or anything like that. You know, it was rough.
Did you get seasick on this trip?
I didn't, but I saw a lot of people get sick, real sick. You know, they'd get real sick. And one part I remember about it when we got into the it was in cold weather, but it was one time when a couple of times we get into the channel there. What can't remember what they called it anyway. Where it was just like summer going. You could go right up on a deck and lay there, and so it was. As far as I was concerned, it didn't bother me at all.
So then where did you land in Europe?
Le Havre.
Le Havre. And then,
They just took us right. Did we? Yeah, I think the equipment, our new equipment, we had all new guns, and we were. I think the more we got in Le Havre, we just bivouacked there for a day or two, and then they shipped us out, and we went out, and we went to a staging area, and it was a big tent area. But when we got there, it was at night, and the tents were all down, and wasn't a single one of them, and it was mud about that thick, all around, and we just lived in that mud for a day or two, and we got the tents up, and finally we got overshoes to put over our shoes, and we got settled down, and then we moved out, and we moved. I'm sure it was the 7th Army. We went to. We were assigned. And I can think of Aachen. I can remember that very distinctly because it was quite a resort there, and they always told us that Hitler and his people spent time up there, and there wasn't much left of it, but and we got up there, and that's when we first started our initial firing, and that's when it was, and as I said to you, it was all harassing fire, and harassing fire. I didn't know what harassing fire was at the time, but in every battery there was every battalion there was 3 outfits, A, B, and C company batteries. I keep saying companies, but it's actually battery. And the batteries were there were 1, 2, 3, 4. There were 3 gun positions. I'm trying to think now, but I think there was 4 guns, 4 gun positions to a battery. Yeah, 4 gun positions. And a battery would start firing at a target. Sometimes never knew who you were firing at, but you'd fire at try to think now. Yeah, you'd start firing. Now you'd fire the first gun in a battery would fire a salvo. Yeah, that's the word now, salvo. It's coming back to me. And then 10 minutes later, the second gun would fire one. Then 10 minutes later, the third gun would fire one. 10 minutes later, the fourth gun would fire one. And then B battery would start up, and it would go right along like that and keep it, whether it was all on the same targets, I wouldn't have any way of knowing, but it was just to keep the Germans alert, that's all, knowing that there was somebody around shooting at them, that's all. And that was the extent of it. And then we went from there, we stayed there, well, I can't tell you how long. Then we went to the Ruhr pocket. We went down there. There was fighting going on down there, so we went down there, and we were assigned to. Again, I can't remember what army we were assigned to, and we stayed there. And then we went assigned to the 3rd Army, and stayed there till the end of the war. But it was always harassing fire. A couple of times you'd get involved with a little combat firing, because I'd seen the times when our guns we'd go past the infantry. The infantry would be resting alongside the road, and we'd go past them, but we were always well behind and well protected with a howitzer, because they'd set the gun positions where you're always behind some hills or something like that, because the trajectory of a howitzer is, it's lobbing them over, and That's the type of firing that we did.
Now, do you remember about how many hours a day you worked before you had rest with these guns?
Well, rest to me would mean a lot of different things to a lot of people, I suppose. But we never had a day. You know, I said when we started, we kept right on going, day after day, day after day. We never had a rest period or anything like that. We just kept going. The only rest you'd have is when you went from one outfit to another, because we were assigned wherever they needed somebody. They'd assigned us to that. It could be in the same army, but it was just that we'd get assigned and we'd go right in positions and start firing. But I suppose the type of firing we did, that was rest enough, you know. It wasn't too much, not too strenuous.
But you did have to sleep on occasion, I assume.
Oh yeah, you'd find time to
You
sleep,
had
but
time to get your own time.
I imagine we must have had lulls in our firing, but we were in position all the time. We never had what I would say a rest break, where you come back and went back to P&R or whatever the hell they call it, R&R or whatever they call it. No, we just kept it all up all the time we were there.
And what did you have to eat? What kind of
Regular food or
situation?
rations?
All rations.
Rations,
Lived
yeah.
on rations, and I'm trying to think.
Any
it was-
you particularly liked?
C rations, D, K?
I'm trying to think of the one. The last one we got, the K rations were no good, but there was one rations that near the end we got good. We had pretty good food in those rations. They were good. They were good. And we got every Sunday, wherever we were, we always got cigarettes and an allotment of cigarettes and candy and toothpaste, and every Sunday we'd get them overseas. That's after we were over in Germany. Heck, I had so many cigarettes, and I didn't smoke. I had cigarettes all over the place and give them away and all, you know. And then you give them to some. Heck, you know, you could get a pack of cigarettes. You can get $50, $60 from the Frenchmen for them. They were selling them. Oh, I sold my share.
And
What was weather like over there? Did you go through bitter cold winter time?
Oh yeah, it was cold. It was cold. Right, you know, right up until the end. The end was in May, and you know, it was cold right up until it was cold because it snowed. It snowed the day that we were. They said, well, it's officially over with. We woke up, we were covered with snow. We got bogged down, and we slept right there, and that was when. Yeah, it was cold weather. It was cold weather.
Did you have any contact with people, troops surrendering? What was the general feeling from people as you occupied more and more territory?
We never got involved in that. Never got involved. The infantry up ahead of us took all the prisoners and all that sort of stuff. No, we never got involved. All we would do was, if we had a rest period, our battery commander, he'd go and kick people out of their houses, and we'd take over for them, and it wasn't the best thing in the world that we did. You know, we just kicked people out of the house. We took over their houses, and I've seen them. We had a veterinarian in our outfit, and they'd go and take a calf or a cow and slaughter them, and but they weren't good eating. I'm telling you, they were tougher than hell. But he's.
Did you have any periods over there when you were able to take in a USO show? And if so, were there any named entertainers that you can remember?
I never got involved in any of that. We never got any entertainment at all over there. No.
And how often did you get mail from home, and was it a big day?
I think we had mail delivery maybe once a week, twice a week. We'd get it. Because my wife wrote to me about every day, and you'd end up getting quite a bit of mail. But other than my wife, I never got any mail.
Did you have to have any mail that you wrote censored to be sent back here?
I presume pretty much all of it was censored. You know, you could. I can't say really. I don't know.
And are you ever in touch with any of the people that you served with in the service, or?
Oh, I was for a while, but you know, I was involved in. Yeah. There was a Frank Taylor, and I remember him down there, and then there was another guy from Newburgh, it was Catootie. I remember him. In fact, this Taylor was quite a while afterwards. We were having dinner at Keeler's or something, had a luncheon at Keeler's, and this Frank Taylor, who was in my outfit, I mean, I was in his outfit too, you know, but he came, he was in Albany, and he got in touch with me at Keeler's that night, and we had a few drinks then. But other than that, no, we never communicated a lot when we got out of the service.
Now, what was, when you were released, what was the procedure for coming back home to the States when you left Europe?
Getting on ship, you mean? I shipped out of Marseille to come back home.
And where did you come into the States? Where did you?
New York.
New York.
In New York, and then then they moved us right to Dick's, and they said, you have an option, you can stay here or, for a while, or you can go home and then come back. And I said, no way, you're not getting me out of here till, when I go, I'm done. You know, so what the heck was the next, you know, I've been away for almost 3 years, and it's, and not too many furloughs, but.
Can you tell us something about, I think you mentioned earlier, a historic place over there, Reims, where they signed the armistice?
Oh, yeah.
What are your recollections about that?
Well, it was quite, I can't tell you how we actually got there. I'm sure it was as part of one of those convoys going back to where we started from. And I can't tell you now where we started from, but I remember we ended up at either Le Havre one time, or many times at Le Havre, and then Marseille. We either took troops to either one of those places. And I can't tell you how long that detail lasted, but it lasted quite a while. And then they brought us back to Reims, and oh yeah, it was quite a thrill, I thought anyway, to go see that little schoolhouse where they sat and where where they signed the armistice, and it wasn't a very big place. It was cramped pretty much for the caliber of people that were there, but it was they had nameplates where everybody sat who signed that thing, and I can't tell you who all was there, but.
Did you ever have an opportunity, even from a distance, to see General Eisenhower or any of his groups?
No. Never saw Patton either. You know, you knew that he was traveling around. I guess I never really saw him, but you know, somebody'd say, well, General Patton just went by here or something like that. Or I can't remember the other generals. It's just that Patton stands out in my mind. But I never saw Bradley. I never saw any of them.
The officers that were in the unit you were with, how could you describe them? Were they very caring for the men?
My own battalion, I thought I thought my battery commander was not the greatest thing. But the officers, Lieutenant Brinkley, Lieutenant Duncan, one was Lieutenant Brinkley was my he was my battery officer, and then Duncan was the artillery officer, and a guy from, I can't think of who he was, a guy who was a transportation officer, was he was from Philadelphia. He was a fireman out of Philadelphia. I can remember that. But and they were all good. And but you can't say too much for the. I can't say too much for the company battery commander. He didn't impress me too much.
Okay, then when you were coming on home, I suppose you were all very happy. And when you returned, you mentioned you lived in Vorheesville at the time. What was it like when you came home? Who greeted you, and what was the town like? And did Vorheesville, being a little village, have any special ceremonies or anything?
No, no, no. We staggered back. Everybody, it was such. Everybody came back at a different time. There was never any.
One big celebration
No,
for
no,
the
no.
guys later on or anything?
When we had furloughs while we were wherever we were, when we had furloughs, not while we were overseas, of course, but we had furloughs. There always seemed to be quite a few guys home on leave, and no, there was no celebration.
When you got back home, did you have any problems adjusting? Today we hear about the different things that some of the veterans go through, especially from Vietnam.
I guess no. To answer your question, Ken, no. I guess I'm a different type of individual. I think I'm a soft-hearted guy, but I have limited tolerance with some of the actions of some of the people. I can't. I can't buy all that you hear and all of that. There was no reason for me to be any different when I come out than I was when I went in. Now, I tell you, I wasn't. I didn't have the. I didn't see any fierce combat. I seen people get killed. I seen, but it was a limited amount. But I had no reason to feel any different when I come home than I was over there. Yeah, it was. It wasn't the best thing in the world that happened to me, but I liked the Army. I liked the Army.
Now, why did you like the Army?
I guess maybe it was a German blood in me. It was just a regimentation, and I liked that. I liked the regimentation. And I've always been that way. I'm a strong, principled guy, and I like to know what's going on and what went on, and obey the rules, and things are fine. You don't obey the rules, then you're in trouble.
Did you have any trouble getting employment, or did you go back to Duffy Mott?
I come back, and I came back here, and I went to, it seems to me we got paid for 11 days or 12 days or something like that. And so I put in some applications when I come back, but then I went back to Duffy Mott. And, but then, right after I started Duffy Mott, I got a call from the telephone company, and come on in, boy, I just got off, and I went right in the telephone company then, and started then. And I can remember my interview with the telephone company. When I didn't start as a lineman, I started in a supply department, where they had guys out there. The telephone company was out there buying stuff. They bought anything that was laying around. They bought it. They hired guys to go out, not telephone people, but other people to go out. And I remember George Farley, who worked for Albany Hardware at the time. He went out, and all he did was just buy stuff for the telephone company. And they'd come in truckloads. And I remember when I went in there and saw Lee Parker, who was the supervisor at the time. I went in there, and he commended. All he did is feel my muscle. He said, "Boy, you'll be able to load the trucks. You're hired." That was my interview with him.
And how many years did you work for the telephone company?
34.
34 years. Okay, and how do you feel that your experiences in the Army helped you in any way in your life, or how's it affected you?
I, like I said, I'm a pretty much of a realistic guy, and I believe in things as they are. I'm not a rabble rouser. I don't agree with everything, and when I don't agree, I say so. Uh, and I just, it didn't change me at all. That's all I can say. I just, but in my experience, I guess all I learned in the Army was to do believe do what you're supposed to do. I guess that's what I'm on, and that's always been my hobby. And when I come back and went to the telephone company, I was only in there a short while, and somebody saw it. Cliff Cook. I mean, he was a storekeeper. That was a title at the time. And of course, when I went in there, Jesus, when we worked down Duffy Mud, you worked like, putting everything was hand, with the bottles and and working for the telephone company, I just did everything they wanted me to do, and I got so tired of hearing people say, Jesus, I'm working here, I'm working there, and what do you do? Oh, nothing. They don't know what I'm doing, that sort of thing. And they damn sure knew what I was doing because in the telephone company, I guess I had first level jobs. I must have had about every 3-4 months I'd get changed to another job, and when I made supervisor, geez, I was all over. I went into buildings and motor vehicles and outside plant, and I did just about everything. But I thought I did everything well, and it paid off. I was a first line guy, and then I was level and a half, and then I got to be second level. That's as high as I got.
Now, in your mail that you received from your wife Vera, I imagine she brought you up to date on how things were back in the home front here. About rationing, how they'd have to have ration coupons and tokens to be able to purchase
Well,
food.
somehow or other I knew about it. I don't know whether she can't remember our correspondence too much, but it was all that gushy stuff. I miss you and you miss me, and that sort of thing.
Did you save all the letters?
No, I don't save anything.
Anything else? Okay, well, thank you very much. It's been enjoyable.